The fact of the matter is that there are a lot of teams and a lot of games that play in the playoffs and they're underrated and all that. Performances are underrated. Some teams do so well, they think they win, but they're the losers. Like Atlanta, like Matt Ryan had a fantastic day passing the ball for Atlanta in the first half against the Patriots in 2017, but of course they lose the Super Bowl. You got the fact that they're high scoring affairs and blowouts and all that. But what if I told you that there is a rarity in football, usually in the regular season and the playoffs, that you got to look after? And that's the fact that a typical football play did not even get used. And then that's the punt. A lot of people know about the punt. On fourth down, you punt the ball to make sure that the other team loses some yardage and doesn't get a good enough chance for a touchdown. But what if I told you that there was a postseason game with 0 punts in it, and both teams were fantastic teams and would play their hearts out? Of course, what if I told you that one of the two um, teams losing would stink to high heaven and would maybe put the team back to choke label? Obviously, this franchise doesn't do it nowadays, but what if it did? So let's talk about the 2003 Kansas City Chiefs. So get ready. I said, are you ready? Are you ready for some Cutter What If NFL football? A weekend invasion. Yeah, it's Cutter talking to you live. We got the hits and the misses. So come join me for all the fun. All the rowdy friends come in. It's the weekend, y'all. Are you ready? Yeah, let's do this, baby. Yes. So the Kansas City Chiefs were an American Football League team. The league that dared to challenge the NFL's social conventions. Kind of the big thing in the 60s because the NHL was competed by the World Hockey Association, well, in the 70s. The American Basketball Association challenged the NBA, and the NFL was challenged by World Football. Well, I mean, not football. Baseball was challenged kind of by the Continental League before baseball decided to expand. So, anyhow, the Kansas City Chiefs did not start off in Kansas City. People forget about that. For how good that franchise is, they didn't start life as the Kansas City Chiefs. They started out life as the Dallas Texans, as Lamar Hunt was one of the founders of the American Football League, and he wanted to put a team in Dallas. So he did. And that persuaded the NFL to put their own team in Dallas to try to take away fans and to say that the NFL is a better market. Unfortunately, though, that would go for crap as the Cowboys could not win a game to save their lives in 1960. Anyhow, the Dallas Texans were okay. And in 1962, they faced off against the Houston Oilers in one of the most famous AFL finals ever. The game ended up tied in Houston, so they had to flip a coin. Kansas City won the toss, and Amber Hayes, the great running back who died, I think, 1 or 2 years ago, famously said, "We will kick to the clock," alluding to the fact that, we're going to receive the ball, but we want the side of the field with the clock. Unfortunately, though, when he said kick to the clock, that meant that he was going to kick the ball. So that, of course, meant that he was screwed. And Houston had the ball first. But in one of the strangest cases of a blooper actually not costing a team, Dallas did win the game in double overtime. So Houston couldn't take advantage of the blunder. The fact of the matter was that they were okay, but then they were losing money because the Cowboys were starting to get good in the NFL, and Kansas City really wanted a AFL team. So Lamar Hunt sold the Texans and moved them to Kansas City to become the Chiefs. And football in Missouri was just good. And Kansas City were one of the best AFL teams around. Heck, they were the first AFL team to play in the Super Bowl. Well, they didn't call it the Super Bowl, they called it the AFL NFL Championship game. But anyway, they would take on the Green Bay Packers and get their butts handed to them by the Packers, making the NFL have superiority. The Chiefs went back to the Super Bowl in Super Bowl IV, which was the last time that the AFL and NFL would face each other in a Super Bowl. But Kansas City kept matriculating the ball down the field, as Hank Stram would say, and beat up on the Vikings 24-7, nodding the score 2 AFL World titles to 2 NFL titles. And then, of course, the merger happened and they were in the AFC. Kansas City would be victimized by the longest game in NFL history, a double overtime Christmas Day game between the Dolphins and the Chiefs in the divisional round, back when they played playoff games on Christmas Day. And back when the season ended before Christmas Day. So, anyway, Kansas City were snake bit. They had some very good teams, but they just couldn't hold on and win playoff games at home to save their lives. In '95, they had a golden chance to beat the Indianapolis Colts and go to the AFC title game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Unfortunately, though, Lynn Elliott missed 3 key field goals, and the Colts won. Fortunately, the Steelers beat the Colts to go on to Super Bowl 30, but it could have been different if Aaron Bailey had not dropped that ball in his lap. And in the 97 season, Kansas City were the better team with Denver. Denver had to start out as a wildcard team, and Kansas City was expected to roll over Denver and go to the AFC title game. Nope. Denver won the game and then went on to win the Super Bowl later on. Kansas City were always cursed by great teams, but then they would falter in the playoffs and all of that. It was just heartbreaking, especially one game, I think it was 2014 against the Colts in Indianapolis. They had such a tidy lead, and then all of a sudden the Colts came back with Andrew Luck and won the game. So anyway, the Chiefs would bungle their way on, and then they would pick this guy up, seemingly for peanuts in the draft, by the name of Patrick Mahomes from Texas Tech. Little did people know that it started a Kansas City resurgence, a renaissance. Sure, they went to the 2019 AFC title game against the Pats and hosted it, and were supposed to beat the Pats and go on to the Super Bowl against the Rams. But the Pats won in overtime and won that Super Bowl. But Kansas City wouldn't fuck up the next time, the 2020 season. And no, that's not the COVID season, 2019-20. Kansas City was actually down 24-0. Was it that year? Can't remember what year it was. Kansas City was down 24-0 and then crushed Houston in Divine Powder. I think that was 2019. I think that was the 2020 playoffs. Nevertheless, Kansas City went to the finals. They took on the Niners. They were in trouble, down by 10, headed to the fourth quarter. Patrick Mahomes, known as Patty Ice, the good one, and basically took out the Niners. They went to the Super Bowl in 2021, lost to the Bucks and Tom Brady, and then they won back to back in 23 and 24. And this year they were looking to repeat, a three-peat, which would be the first time in NFL history someone has done that. I mean, basketball's had many three-peats, including the Bulls in the 90s. Baseball's had three-peats with the Yankees from 1949 to 1953, if you will. And the NHL's had some three-peats, including Montreal's 5 straight from 56 to 60. The NFL is the only one of the big four that doesn't have a three-time defending champion. So unfortunately, they lost the Super Bowl to the Eagles, and of course, I'm pissed off. But the fact of the matter is, this 2003 Kansas City team was one of the best of the bunch that should get a what if. Anyhow, let's take a look at them. So the 2003 Chiefs, this was their 34th season in the NFL, their 44th overall, and their third under Dick Vermeil, who was supposed to stay retired after leading the Rams to the Super Bowl in 2000, but he couldn't. Anyway, Kansas City started off with a 9-game winning streak, the best start in their 40-year history. The Chiefs won the AFC West and were the number 2 seed in the playoffs. And it was the first time they were in the playoffs since '97 when they choked to the Broncos in the playoffs. And of course, that game. Best known for the Chiefs' record-breaking offense. Priest Holmes would put up 27 rushing touchdowns to break Marshall Faulk's single-season touchdown record and Emmitt Smith's single-season rushing touchdown total. Trent Green threw for over 4,000 yards, and Dante Hall had 4 kick sixes, a.k.a. he returned kicks for touchdowns 4 times. I think he was in the CFL. I don't remember. I know he was in the NFL Europe. Unfortunately, the Chiefs' defense basically was the weak point. Offense was good, defense not so much. This was the last time until this previous year, 24-25, that the Chiefs had been undefeated at home. In the draft, they actually had the 16th pick and decided to trade down to Pittsburgh for the 27th pick. And they took Larry Johnson from Penn State, which was huge. Kawika Mitchell was also a big pick, a linebacker from South Florida, but Larry Johnson from Penn State. Unfortunately, though, at the time, Penn State was known for having a graveyard of running backs. Curtis Enos, Kijana Carter, possibly John Cappelletti, DJ Dozier. Penn State was known for having running back busts, but Larry Johnson broke the mold and played his heart out. So Dick Vermeil was the head coach. The general manager was practically Carl Peterson. The quarterbacks, Todd Collins and Trent Green, were the duo. Well, Green was the number one guy. Running backs, Derek Blaylock, Priest Holmes, and Larry Johnson, and Tony Richardson. It's shocking. Priest Holmes and Larry Johnson both were very good running backs in their own rights, and they play on the same team. Of course, Priest Holmes was a Baltimore icon. Wide receivers, Mark Bolcher, the former Calgary Stampeder, Dante Hall, Eddie Kennison, and Johnny Morton, the former Lion. Tony Gonzalez at tight end, legend Willie Roof, Will Shields, Marcus Spears, John Tate, Brian Waters, Casey Weekman, your big offensive line. Defensive lineman, Fonnie Holiday, Ryan Sims were the big guys. Bonnie Beisel, who I believe went into wrestling soon after. Scott Fujita and Kawika Mitchell were your top linebackers. Your top defensive backs were Dexter McClellan, fresh from the Rams, Eric Warfield, Greg Wesley, and Jerome Woods. Morton Anderson, the eternal one, was the kicker. Jason Baker, the punter. So yeah, the Chiefs started up 9-0. They topped the NFL in almost every statistical category, and it looked like they were going to be favorites to win the Super Bowl. They clinched their first AFC West title since 1997 when they crushed the Lions. Yeah, Priest Holmes got 27 touchdowns, the most by a player ever. All that. Yeah, they lost to Cincy, Denver, and Minnesota, but they were all on the road. So no big deal. Look closer now. Chiefs were 13-3. The Broncos were 10-6 and the 6th seed. Kind of eerily similar to the last time the Chiefs won the division. They were the top team, and the Broncos were the 6th seed. They had the first round bye and then got to the divisional round against the number 3 Indianapolis Colts. The Colts and Chiefs, Enberg and Deerdorf doing their jobs. What a game it was. This offensive shootout was the second game without a punt. Second game without a punt in NFL history, and the first since Buffalo San Fran in 1992, but that was the regular season. The Colts had Peyton Manning throw for 304 yards and 3 touchdowns. Edgerrin James ran for 125 yards and 2 scores. Dante Hall did catch a touchdown and then got a kick 6 for another touchdown. Priest Holmes put up 176 rushing yards. All of that. So it was humongous. Well, the Colts stormed up to the lead when Peyton Manning threw a touchdown to Brandon Stokely. Field goal later by Kansas City, Indy would score as Edgerrin James would get an 11-yard touchdown when they make it 14-3. Dante Hall got from Green for a touchdown, and then Tom Lipinski, touchdown from Peyton Manning, made it 21-10. Bergeron field goal. Priest Holmes got a touchdown run to make it 24-17. Reggie Wayne from Peyton touchdown 31-17. Then Dante Hall returned that ball for a touchdown 31-24. Edgerrin touchdown. Priest touchdown. Holy guacamole, Jeffrey. So anyway, yeah, the 2003 Chiefs taking on the Colts. They lost in one of the weirdest anomalies, a punt-free game. It's like shocking how it was punt-free. So anyhow, the Colts would go on to the AFC title game against the Pats and lose, thankfully. You know, I'm a Pats fan. So anyway, what would have happened if the Chiefs were going to the AFC title game? Let's find out. So the Kansas City Chiefs are in the what if and would play New England. Of course, we leave the NFC alone with the Eagles and Panthers, and the Panthers would have won that game anyway. So, contrary to popular belief, Kansas City would not have been the home home team for the AFC title game. The Pats were 14-2. The Chiefs were 13-3. So the Chiefs would go to New England. the play in 30 Fahrenheit score. So let's see what happens. Sorry about that. So Kansas City got the ball first, and 8 plays 55 yards later, they score a touchdown. Trent Green flipped it to Tony Gonzalez for a 14-yard touchdown. Chiefs were up 7-0. But the Pats got their ball back, and after an incidental face mask, Anton Smith got a 9-yard touchdown run. Touchdown, 7-0. Kansas City, New England. Anderson would kick a 20-yard field goal and make it 10-7. A lot of punting and all that. Kansas City got punished for intentional grounding, but it didn't matter. New England got the ball first of the second half, and then after a 10-play, 70-yard drive that took over 6 minutes, Anton Smith ran for 16 yards, and that made it 14-10. Larry Johnson, near the end of the third quarter, had a ball 6 yards, but got stripped by the Pats. And then in the fourth quarter, off of that play, well, New England did have a penalty for holding, all that, but they still did it. On 2nd and 21, Brady got it past to Deion Branch for 16 yards, made it 3rd and 5, and then passed to Falk. First and goal at the 5. Troy Brown touchdown makes it 21-10. Kansas City would have the ball. Field goal for 31 yards made it 21-13. The Patriots actually were running down the field, and Anton Smith had 4 yards to run it to the 13, but he dropped the ball. Kansas City got the ball back, so all they needed was a touchdown and the 2 points. So they rolled the dice a bit. On 4th and 5 at the Pats 47, Priest Holmes gets a run, but only 2 yards. So the Patriots win the game 21-13. So it would not have mattered. The Pats would have went to the Super Bowl anyway. Kansas City would have given them a show. But Antoine Smith is your hero. 2 field goal, 2 touchdown runs. Chiefs 6 for 14 on conversions. Pats 7 for 12. Running yards 210, 79 for the Patriots. They could run the ball. The Chiefs were slowing down. Why? Passing yards for Kansas City. Why? Henderson got 37 yards on one play, and he had more yards than Priest Holmes and Larry Johnson. The defense was just that damn good. Kevin Falk, 97 yards. Trent Green, 21 for 34, 226, and a touchdown. Todd Collins even came in the game and was 1 for 2 for 12 yards. Tom Brady, 13 for 21, 149. No sacks, no picks by anybody. Morton made 2 field goals, but it doesn't matter. And the Patriots would have still went to the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs would have still had to eat crow and like it. Anyway, I'm jumped. I'm going to do